The hum of the refrigerator was the loudest thing in the house most nights, a low, steady thrum that was as constant and unremarkable as our life had become. Mark usually went to bed by 10, sometimes earlier if he had a big project at the firm. I'd stay up, scrolling through my phone, watching some show I wasn't really invested in, the glow of the screen reflecting in the dark windows. It wasn't a bad life. We had the house in the suburbs, the 2 cars in the driveway, the decent jobs. We'd been married for 10 years, together for 12. It was comfortable, safe, predictable. Maybe that was the problem. I remember one Tuesday evening, just a few months before everything imploded. Mark was already asleep. I was sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, and I found myself staring at our wedding photo on the mantel. We looked so young, so full of a fierce, unshakable belief that we were the only 2 people who mattered in the whole world. Our eyes held a promise that felt so distant now. We still loved each other, I think, or at least we were used to loving each other. It was a kind of muscle memory. We'd say I love you before bed, before work. It was part of the script. But the spark, that intense, all-consuming fire that had burned so hot, it had dwindled to embers, occasionally stirred by a shared joke or a nostalgic song, but mostly just ash. My job at the marketing agency was fine. It paid the bills. I managed accounts for a couple of tech startups, ran campaigns, crunched data. It wasn't glamorous, but it wasn't soul-crushing either. Just fine, like everything else. Then Ethan walked in. He was the new senior creative strategist, brought in to shake things up, breathe some fresh air into the department. He was younger than me, maybe 30, with a messy head of dark hair, a laugh that made people turn their heads, and an easy confidence that I hadn't seen in anyone in years. Mark was quiet, steady. Ethan was a whirlwind. From the first team meeting, I felt a shift. He looked at me when I spoke, really looked at me, not just nodding politely while his mind wandered. He'd ask follow-up questions, genuinely interested in my perspective, even if it was just about the color palette for an ad campaign. It was such a small thing, but it felt like a revelation. It felt like being seen again. Mark, bless his heart, often seemed to be in his own head, lost in engineering schematics or the latest news about interest rates. When I talked about my day, he'd listen with half an ear, offering a distracted, that's rough, or good for you. It wasn't malicious, just habitual. Ethan started sitting closer to me in meetings. We'd grab coffee together in the mornings, sometimes stretching it to 15 minutes, talking about everything and nothing. He had this way of making the most mundane things sound fascinating. He was a storyteller, even about his weekend trip to some obscure hiking trail or a dive bar he'd discovered.
He was also incredibly direct, but in a charming way. He'd compliment my ideas, my style, even the way I explained complex data. "Sarah, you have a gift for making the dry stuff sing," he'd said once, and I felt a blush creep up my neck. It was such a simple compliment, but it landed like a bombshell. I started to look forward to going to work. My mornings had a new energy. I'd pick out my outfits with more care, even put on a little extra makeup. I'd catch myself smiling for no reason, just thinking about a joke Ethan had made, or a quick glance we'd exchanged across the office. I told myself it was harmless. He was a colleague. We were friends. Mark and I had friends. This was just a new friendship, a breath of fresh air. But deep down, a knot of unease had started to form in my stomach. I knew it was more. One evening, after a particularly grilling pitch meeting that had run late, it was just Ethan and I left in the office. Everyone else had scattered, eager to get home. We were cleaning up, putting away presentation boards, when he looked at me and said, "Man, I need a drink. You in?" My first thought was Mark. Dinner was probably already on the table, or he was about to start it. But then I thought about the predictable evening ahead. Quiet dinner, maybe a show, early bedtime. The thought felt heavy. "Yeah," I heard myself say. "Yeah, I could really use one." We went to a little bar around the corner, dimly lit with exposed brick and a good craft beer selection. We talked for hours about work, about our lives, about our pasts, our dreams. He talked about his passion for photography, his desire to travel, his complicated relationship with his family. I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't with Mark in years. I told him about my suppressed artistic ambitions from college, about feeling stuck, about the quiet loneliness that sometimes gnawed at me despite being married. He listened intently, his eyes never leaving mine, a genuine empathy in his gaze. He didn't offer solutions or platitudes. He just understood. By the time I checked my phone, it was almost 11. Mark had texted, "Everything okay? Dinner's cold?" My heart sank, a familiar pang of guilt mixed with a strange defiance. I quickly typed back, "Work ran super late, just left, be home soon." I didn't mention Ethan. The lie felt small at first, insignificant, just omitting a detail, but it was a crack in the foundation. As we walked out of the bar, the cool night air hit us. There was a lightness to me, a buzzing energy I hadn't felt in forever. We stood on the sidewalk for a moment, just looking at each other. The streetlights cast long shadows. He reached out, gently touched my arm. "Thanks, Sarah. Needed that." His touch lingered. My breath caught. I could feel the heat of his fingers through my sleeve. "Me too," I whispered. He leaned in slightly, his gaze dropping to my lips for a split second, and I knew, with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified me, that he wanted to kiss me. I wanted him to. I pulled away, my heart hammering. "I should go," I said, my voice a little breathless. He nodded, a soft, understanding smile on his face. "Get home safe." I practically ran to my car, my mind a whirl. The drive home was a blur. When I walked in, Mark was in bed, sound asleep. I felt a wave of conflicting emotions, relief that I didn't have to face him, and a fresh surge of guilt. I felt like a stranger in my own home, a walking lie. Over the next few weeks, the emotional intimacy with Ethan deepened. Lunches turned into long walks during the workday, more drinks after work, sometimes a casual touch on my arm, a lingering hand on my back as we passed in the hallway. Each interaction was a dangerous dance, a testing of boundaries, a slow, inevitable slide. The guilt became a constant companion, a dull ache beneath the surface of my new, exhilarating happiness. At home, I tried harder with Mark. I cooked his favorite meals, suggested movie nights, initiated sex. But it felt forced, a performance. I was trying to overcompensate, to quiet the screaming voice of my conscience. Mark, in his predictable way, seemed to appreciate the effort, mistaking my anxiety for renewed affection. He'd smile, say, "You've been great lately, babe," and my stomach would clench. The agency announced a big industry conference in Vegas. 3 days, 4 nights. A team of us would be going, including Ethan. My heart leaped, then plummeted. Vegas, a city built on indulgence and temptation. Mark was immediately supportive. "Go get 'em, honey. Network, learn, have fun." His trust felt like a concrete weight. The first day in Vegas was all business. Panels, presentations, schmoozing. But by the evening, after the official dinner, the atmosphere shifted. Most of our colleagues dispersed to gamble or find late-night shows. Ethan and I found ourselves at a quiet bar, away from the casino floor, ordering cocktails. The conversation flowed easily, fueled by the anonymity of the city and the potent drinks. We talked about how stifling the corporate world could be, how we both dreamed of something more. He told me about an art gallery he wanted to open someday. I told him about the novel I'd always wanted to write. We shared these secret parts of ourselves, things I hadn't even consciously admitted to myself. The drinks kept coming. The laughter grew louder, more uninhibited. The air between us was thick with unspoken tension. I could feel his gaze on me, warm and insistent. My mind was foggy, but my body was humming, alive. He reached across the table, took my hand. His thumb traced circles on my skin. "Sarah," he said, his voice low and husky, "there's something happening here, isn't there?" My breath hitched. I couldn't deny it. Not anymore. I just nodded, my eyes locked on his. We left the bar and walked through the brightly lit hotel lobby, a kaleidoscope of lights and sounds. My head was spinning, but my focus was entirely on him. We got into the elevator, the silence between us heavy, charged. He pressed the button for my floor. Then, as the doors slid shut, he gently turned me to face him, his hands finding my waist. He didn't say anything, just looked at me, his eyes full of a raw, undeniable longing. And then he leaned in, and his lips met mine.
It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was hungry, desperate, like a dam breaking. All the unspoken words, the lingering glances, the suppressed desires exploded in that moment. My hands found their way to his hair, pulling him closer. The elevator chimed as it reached my floor, but neither of us noticed. When the doors opened, we stumbled out, still locked in the embrace, practically falling into the hallway. We found my room, the card key a fumbling blur in my shaking hand. The next few hours were a blur of sensation, guilt, and a terrifying, exhilarating freedom. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered word felt like an act of rebellion, a dangerous leap into the unknown. I cried a little, not tears of sadness, but a confusing mix of release and shame. In the afterglow, lying beside him, the harsh reality began to seep in. My husband, my marriage, my entire life. What had I done? The next 2 days in Vegas were a nightmare of conflicting emotions. During the day, I was professional Sarah, attending sessions, feigning interest. But every time Ethan caught my eye, a tremor went through me. We continued the affair, sneaking off whenever possible, the risk making every moment feel even more intense, more illicit. I was living a double life, fully immersed in a lie, and the weight of it was crushing me. I felt like I was splitting into 2 different people, the one who loved Mark, or thought she did, and the one who craved the validation and excitement Ethan offered. Coming home was like stepping back into a meticulously constructed set. Mark was at the airport, smiling, holding a bouquet of flowers. He hugged me tight, kissed my hair. "Missed you, babe? How was it?" His genuine affection felt like a punch to the gut. I hugged him back, forcing a smile, my stomach churning. It was good, tiring, a lot of talking. I managed to avoid his eyes. The affair continued when we got back. Discreet lunches, stolen moments, late-night texts that I deleted immediately. Every time my phone buzzed, a jolt of adrenaline would course through me. I kept it close, always face down, always on silent. Mark, being Mark, was oblivious. Or maybe he just chose not to see. He trusted me implicitly, and that trust was a constant, searing pain. I started to withdraw from him. Our conversations became more superficial. I'd make excuses to stay late at work or to go out with friends I hadn't seen in ages. I felt sick with guilt, but also trapped. Ethan was becoming more demanding.
He wanted more time, more commitment. He started talking about a future, about leaving my husband. His words, which once sounded liberating, now felt suffocating. I wasn't in love with him, not truly. I was in love with the idea of him, with the way he made me feel, with the escape he offered. But leaving Mark, that was a terrifying prospect. That was tearing my life apart, not just poking holes in it. One Saturday afternoon, about 4 months into the affair, Mark and I were doing yard work. He was trimming hedges, I was weeding the flower beds. My phone was in my jeans pocket. I got a text, a picture, from Ethan. It was a selfie of him, smiling, with a caption, "Thinking of you, can't wait for tonight." He knew I was with Mark. He knew I'd said I had a friend's birthday dinner, which was the latest lie I'd spun. My heart hammered. I shoved the phone deeper into my pocket, praying Mark hadn't heard the buzz. We finished up, dusty and tired, and went inside to shower. I left my jeans on the bed. A few minutes later, as I was rinsing my hair, I heard Mark's voice, quiet at first, then rising, tight with a kind of controlled rage I had never heard from him. "Sarah? What is this?" My blood ran cold. The water stopped running. My heart stopped beating. I stumbled out of the shower, wrapping a towel around myself, my hands shaking. Mark was standing in the bedroom, my phone in his hand, his face ashen. He was staring at the screen, and then at me, his eyes wide, filled with an unbearable pain and confusion. The selfie, the text, it was all there. "What is this, Sarah?" he repeated, his voice barely a whisper, but laced with a profound hurt that hit me harder than any shout could have. "Who is this?" The world tilted. My carefully constructed lies, my double life, my secret existence, all of it came crashing down in that instant. I couldn't speak. My throat was tight, my lungs seized. I felt a wave of nausea. "Sarah!" he roared suddenly, his face contorting. "Who the hell is this? And what do you mean, can't wait for tonight? What tonight, Sarah?" His voice cracked on my name. Tears sprang to my eyes. "Mark," I choked out. I can explain."
But I couldn't. There was no explanation that would make it okay. He threw my phone onto the bed hard, and it bounced once before clattering to the floor. Explain? He scoffed, a bitter, humorless laugh escaping him. Explain what? That my wife is seeing another man? That she's been lying to me? That she's been making a fool out of me in my own damn house? He pointed around the room, his hands shaking. Is that what you want to explain? No, Mark, please, I pleaded, stepping towards him. He recoiled as if I had struck him. Don't you dare touch me, he hissed, his eyes blazing. Don't you dare. All this time, all the late nights, the phone always with you, the way you've been distant. I thought you were stressed, worried about work. I tried to be supportive. I tried to be a good husband.
His voice broke on the last words. And all this time, you were with him. You were fucking him. The crudeness of the word, stark and ugly, pierced through me. It was true. I had. It wasn't like that, I stammered, knowing how pathetic it sounded. He let out another laugh, devoid of any mirth. Oh, it wasn't like that? So what was it, Sarah? A deep intellectual connection that just happened to involve you sneaking around behind my back, planning secret rendezvous, sending explicit messages? His eyes narrowed. Don't insult my intelligence. Don't you dare. I sank to the floor, the towel still wrapped around me, feeling utterly exposed, shattered. I'm so sorry, Mark. I am so sorry. The words were meaningless, hollow. They couldn't undo anything. He stood over me, his chest heaving. Sorry? You're sorry? Do you know what you've done, Sarah? Do you have any idea what you've destroyed? He looked around our bedroom, the room we had shared for years, where we'd laughed, cried, made love. His gaze lingered on the photos on my bedside table, us on our honeymoon, at Christmas, with friends. His face crumpled. Our life, everything we built, it was all a lie, wasn't it? Every I love you, every kiss, every single thing. Was it all just a charade while you were thinking about him? No, Mark, that's not true, I sobbed, looking up at him, tears streaming down my face. I don't know what happened. I got lost. I felt lost, and he made me feel seen. It was stupid, I know. It was a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. He scoffed. A mistake? You think this is a mistake? This is a choice, Sarah. You chose this. You chose to betray me. You chose to lie to me, day after day, week after week, for months. He paused, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. How long, Sarah? How long has this been going on? I hesitated. The truth felt like another nail in the coffin. A few months, I admitted, my voice barely audible. He closed his eyes, a pained groan escaping him. A few months. And you were just going to keep doing it, weren't you? Just going to keep living this double life, lying to my face until I found out. Or maybe you never thought I would. I was going to end it, I lied desperately. I swear I was. I didn't know how. His eyes snapped open, blazing with fury. You didn't know how? How about just not doing it in the first place? How about having an ounce of respect for the man you married, for the vows you made? He took a deep, shuddering breath. Get out of my sight. I can't even look at you right now. I tried to reach for him again. Mark, please, don't say that. I mean it, Sarah, he warned, his voice shaking. I can't breathe in the same room as you right now. Get out. I slowly got up, my body aching, my mind numb. I grabbed some clothes, threw them haphazardly into an overnight bag, still sobbing. As I walked past him, he turned his back to me, his shoulders hunched, completely broken. The sight of his brokenness was worse than his anger. It was my fault. I had done this. I drove aimlessly for what felt like hours, the world outside the car a blurry mess through my tear-filled eyes. Where was I supposed to go? My parents lived 3 states away. My closest friends were mutual friends with Mark. The thought of facing anyone, of admitting what I had done, was unbearable. I couldn't even call Ethan. The thought of him, his selfish demands, his hollow promises, now felt repulsive. He was just a catalyst, not a savior. I ended up checking into a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. The room was sterile, impersonal, a stark contrast to the home I had just been expelled from. I lay on the uncomfortable bed, staring at the popcorn ceiling, feeling utterly alone, stripped bare. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by my ragged breaths and the distant sounds of traffic. My phone, the instrument of my betrayal, was dead on the nightstand. I couldn't bring myself to charge it. The next few days were a blur of shame and despair. I called Mark, but he wouldn't answer. I left voicemails, increasingly desperate, begging him to talk to me, to let me come home, to give us a chance. He finally texted me, "I need space. Don't contact me." The finality of it was a cold fist around my heart. I called Ethan. He answered, his voice bright, until I told him everything. He was surprised, then quickly defensive. "Look, Sarah, I'm sorry, but this isn't on me. You made your choices. I thought you were going to handle things." Handle things. Like it was a messy project, not a shattered marriage. He offered superficial sympathy, then quickly changed the subject to work. It became painfully clear that he had no intention of being my soft landing, my hero. He was just a guy who enjoyed to chase, the thrill of the forbidden. He was not the solution. He was part of the problem. That realization was another bitter pill to swallow. I hung up, feeling even more hollow. I had to tell my boss what had happened, that I wouldn't be able to work with Ethan anymore. The conversation was humiliating. She was professional, but her disappointment was palpable. The rumor mill in the office had already started turning. I could feel the whispers, the sideways glances. My career felt like it was teetering. A week later, I got a call from a lawyer. Mark was filing for divorce. It was real. It wasn't just a threat. My stomach dropped. I tried to argue, to plead, to make him see that we could fix this, that I would do anything. But his lawyer was firm. Mark was done. He couldn't forgive the betrayal. He couldn't look at me without seeing Ethan. He couldn't sleep in our bed without imagining what I had done. I had to move out of the house, our house, the place we had poured our lives, our dreams, our savings into. The process was agonizing.
Packing up my things, separating our lives, item by item. Mark was rarely there when I was, and when he was, his face was a mask of cold fury. The silence between us was heavier than any argument. I packed my books, my clothes, my personal mementos, feeling like I was packing up pieces of my own shattered identity. The wedding photo, the one on the mantle, was still there. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. I found a small apartment on the other side of town. It was generic, sterile, nothing like the cozy home I had shared with Mark. Every morning, I woke up to an empty silence that echoed the emptiness inside me. I missed Mark in ways I hadn't anticipated, not just the physical presence, but the comfortable routines, the shared history, the unspoken understanding. I missed his steady presence, his quiet strength, the way he would absent-mindedly rub my foot under the table during dinner. I had taken it all for granted, and now it was gone. The divorce proceedings were brutal. The lawyers went back and forth, dividing assets, negotiating terms. Every document felt like a fresh cut, a tangible representation of the life I had destroyed. I tried to see Mark, to talk to him outside of the legal context, but he refused. He communicated only through his lawyer. The man I had loved, had built a life with, now treated me like a stranger, an adversary. My friends, our friends, slowly drifted away. They were Mark's friends first, or they were just uncomfortable with the messiness of it all. I didn't blame them. Who wants to be around someone who so spectacularly blew up their own life? I was a cautionary tale. I deserved it. I lost weight. I couldn't sleep. The guilt was a suffocating blanket, heavy and suffocating. I replayed every moment, every decision, every lie, trying to pinpoint where I went wrong. Was it when I started feeling unseen? Was it when I first laughed a little too long at Ethan's joke? Was it the first time I omitted mentioning him? Or was it much, much earlier, a slow erosion of connection that I was too complacent to notice, too selfish to address? I think about Mark, alone in that house, our house.
I imagine him going through the motions, the quiet routine, but with a hollow space where I used to be, and a gaping wound where his trust used to be. I broke him. I broke us. Ethan eventually moved to a different agency, a convenient escape from the awkwardness. He sent me a short text once, a generic, "Hope you're doing okay." I didn't reply. He was a temporary high, a dangerous distraction that cost me everything. The excitement he offered was fleeting, superficial, and ultimately destructive. It's been over a year now since that Saturday afternoon when Mark found the text. The divorce is final. I live alone in my small apartment, working long hours, trying to rebuild something resembling a life. But the foundation is gone. The person I was, the person Mark married, that person feels like a ghost. I see her in old photos, smiling, innocent, unaware of the storm she was about to unleash. Sometimes, late at night, when the city outside is quiet and the only sound is the low hum of my own refrigerator, I close my eyes and I can still see Mark's face when he realized. That look of utter devastation, the confusion, the profound hurt. It haunts me. It will always haunt me. There's no undoing it, no going back, just the wreckage and the unending weight of what I did. I made my bed, and now I lie in it, utterly alone, with nothing but the echoes of a broken promise and the bitter taste of regret. My comfortable, predictable life, the one I had taken for granted, is gone, and I'm the one who burnt it all down.